Means we are just about to begin a brand new episode of the Bid Nerds. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Polnik. Welcome to the Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars and bids, and bring a trailer. I'm here on the Las Vegas Strip in beautiful downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, coming to you from San Francisco Bay. How are you this morning, Michael Deeb?
Oh, just hanging in there by a thread, JP, by a thread.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll take a night. We'll shift this to a late night program. Welcome to Bid
That's
Nerds,
right.
your daily nerd out on the
Smooth
most interesting
jet.
cars and bids, and bring a trailer. Okay, so here we go. Let's. So here's Bid Nerds. What is Bid Nerds? If you're new and you're just joining us, we appreciate you checking out the show. We go over our favorite cars and bids and bring a trailer every day. So there's tons and tons of cars hitting the auction block, and we pick and choose the most interesting ones and talk to you and tell you and have a discussion with you, the audience, on why we think these are the most interesting cars and bids and bring a trailer. We make bid predictions. We will let you know what we think these cars will sell for, and you can take those numbers to the bank, but we don't recommend it because we are often wrong. We have a little bit of a competition between Michael Deeb and I to figure out which one of us is better at this, and so far anybody's game.
It wasn't very competitive yesterday, JP.
We had a good day. Well, I had a good day yesterday.
You had a great day.
Yeah. So let's go over the top 5 cars from yesterday and see how we did, and then we'll get to today's cars. We've got some interesting ones, including a 1991 Miata SE. That's kind of interesting. We'll talk about why, as well as a bunch of other cars. But what happened yesterday, Michael D? What did we talk about?
Oh, JP, you were on fire yesterday.
Burned up.
Let's see.
Like you on Monday, though. I think you almost swept me on Monday.
Almost, yeah. All right, so our hero car yesterday, our star car, was the 1993 BMW 318i Touring. This is basically a gray market import, a car that was never brought to the United States, the 318i Touring from 1993. This car had a ton of miles, but was in beautiful condition. And I have to say, I'm really surprised at what it sold for. I guessed 25, and you parked your bid right underneath mine at 24,000. And this car sold. It was a no reserve auction. Remember that, JP? It sold for $18,750. And I have to say, as much as I kind of bagged on, I'd rather have a more modern BMW wagon. For 18 grand, I would have loved to own that car. That one got away for sure. Anyway, you won that one, and you were off to a great start, because then we rolled over to Cars and Bids to look at the 2003 Volkswagen Passat. This was just a broke bitch basic version with 70,000 original miles. You talked about its post-warranty reliability, and kind of let the audience know that's an oxymoron. I still thought this car might bring $5,000 because you just don't see them in this nice a condition ever. You were well under me at $4,100, and you won this one because it sold for $3,550 out of the Bay Area. Shout out,
which is still too much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shout out to the Bay Area because the Golden Gate Bridge is in the background. Moving on back to Bring a Trailer, we looked at the Isuzu Trooper 2, a 1989 Isuzu Trooper 2. And what was interesting about this car was that we both really thought that might not reach our bids. We were both struggling to see how this car would hold any value because, most of them have just been driven into the ground. They weren't particularly reliable despite their Japanese heritage. And you just don't see them on the road anymore. Anywhere. This one was in exceptionally clean condition, considering, was it like just under 100,000 miles, John, if I'm remembering?
I think it was 88 or something,
Yeah, anyway, I get 15, you guessed 14, and this car exceeded both our bids and sold for $16,750 for my first win of the day.
That is absolutely phenomenal, and I believe this is going to start a mining rush on Craigslist for people selling Isuzu Troopers, because you can find these every now and then out there. It's just they've been so completely worthless, and even nice ones, barely get $4 or $5 grand. So I think people are going to be looking for these. I think anyone that has one is going to be going, ooh, maybe I need to dig this out of the garage and put it up on Bring a Trailer.
John, you also dropped a Freudian slip by calling it a Dodge Raider.
I did,
which shared its platform completely. I mean, even the cosmetics with the Mitsubishi Montero. So I would say that this car's counterpart, the Mitsubishi Montero, and its twin cousin, which is really weird, the Dodge Raider, those would also be on that list of mining Craigslist and maybe flipping for a buck. So yeah, I agree with you. This car could start that trend. This car had an automatic. I mean, it still brought $17,000. Are you crazy?
I know, right? And those are the era too that nowadays all-wheel drive cars and four-wheel drive trucks, you just the shift on the fly, you hit a little button and it's in four-wheel drive. You can hit buttons for the lockers. These you had to get out and turn the hubs, spin the little locker on the hubs, which is just like, nobody does that. Nobody's willing to do that.
Yeah, if you're scoring this home for $2,000 more, could have had that 380i Touring. What?
Yeah, not exactly apples to apples, but yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah,
it's still my money.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So moving on Bring a Trailer, we looked at a 1984 Porsche 911 Targa. If I remember, this car had like 150,000 miles. 84 was the first year of the 3.2. This car had some unusual modifications with a massive set of 18-inch wheels that came on a lighter, special air-cooled car. These are knockoff versions of those speed lines. Even still, this is a black-on-black turbo with a 915 gearbox. There was no mention of any major rebuild, so you wonder how the drivetrain is holding up. That being said, I said 32. You conservatively bid under me at 31, and this car sold for $35,000.
Which I believe, that's what these, actually these are worth more. I think that's a good buy for one of these. It just didn't seem to have any buzz, and it had some weird pictures, and, didn't really dig into the things that were going on in this thing. It's, the whole front of all the front body panels were off of it, and maybe that helped. But, an 84 911 Targa, black on black in good condition, should be in the mid 40s. So 35, even though we both underbid it, is still a really good buy if this is a good driver. But I do think this is a car you need a PPI on. It's not one that you could just buy on a whim and hope it works out for you without a pre-purchase inspection. So
yeah, if there's no rebuild and it's got 150 on the drivetrain, I'd want to know if there's oil falling out of that car.
Yeah.
So anyway, our last car was a submission by our bid nerd friend Matt. Give me Matt's last name, JP.
Drobny.
Matt Drobny. Sorry, Matt. Hey, big shout out to Matt. Thank you for the submission. He asked us to review this 1964 Porsche 356C Coupe. This car had been repainted a while back. The drivetrain had been redone more recently. This looked like an honest-to-goodness great driver with great eyeball. This is not a show car, but this is not a project car either, which is kind of, I think, the sweet spot for picking one of these up, because you don't have to spend six figures to get a great car. And this car proves it. I bid $90,000 and thought I was going to be right in the market for this thing. JP, you conservatively bid just a little bit under me at $85,000, and God dang it, you Yahtzeed this mother chicken and nailed it, because that car sold for $85,000. JP's first Yahtzee in 2 weeks, first Yahtzee of the new year, first Yahtzee, blah, 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 blah. So there you go. Good call on that one. JP,
I am nature's greatest miracle.
Yeah, that's for sure. JP got 3 victories and a Yahtzee, and I only got 2 with my tail between my legs. So there you go. Whatever.
Yeah, that really is a beautiful car, and Matt and his lovely lady were considering getting one, and that would have been a great one to get, but I think it was just a little too rich for his blood. He was hoping to find a bargain, and unfortunately, bid nerd, or not bid nerds, but Bring a Trailer just isn't where you get bargains. Bring a Trailer is where you get the car you're looking for, right? We talked about that
exactly
before.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of the lovely ladies from Las Vegas. She has Ariana. She's got a S14 240 SX Nissan. It's a right-hand drive car. It is the one everyone's JDM, looking for. With this is basically a drift car with all the cool wheels and stuff.
Yeah, that car is manual transmission and rear-wheel drive. So that is the platform to build your drift project on.
Yeah,
that's the car.
And she really did all the right mods. The car looks wonderful, and she's had had it for sale for a while, and she keeps getting these just like low ball. She has it for sale on like Instagram, right? And so she keeps getting these dirt bags sending her photos of, you know, like $600 on the ground, like they're ballers and stuff. These wannabes wanting this car, and
funny.
you know, you can see her frustration. You know, her remarks are great. She's always just like, you know, just so snarky at these poor idiots that think they're going to steal a car. And I mentioned to her, I'm like, put it on Bring a Trailer. That's where you're going to get all the money for an enthusiast car. Maybe even Cars and Bids would bring a premium for something like that, you know, because it's an 80s, 90s, an enthusiast car. But, you know, so hopefully she'll step up and make a real ad for it and sell that thing. But we'll talk about that when that happens. Coming up on the show next week, I believe we're going to have our good friend Danny from DG Vintage Coachworks. He is the famous seller of that 964 wide body a couple of years ago that had that martini livery and the cool roof rack and all that stuff. He's one of the guys that really kind of seems like his car was kind of a turning point for Bring a Trailer in general, where things just kind of blew up. It was the right place at right time, and he has a really cool 997 coupe that he's going to debut on there, and it's going to be for sale. Cool. So we'll get him as a third nerd, and we'll let you know what day that's going to be. We're going to try to get our good friend John Alcantara on later this week. Is that happening? Is that Friday?
That's about,
yeah, we've got a really cool 964 Cup, but those are things coming up later. What's coming up today? We've got some amazing cars. We need to get to those.
All right, JP. So we start today out of Winchester, Virginia. Our star car is a 1991 Mazda Miata. This is an MX-5 special edition in British racing green. These cars, this was, if I remember correctly, this was the very first special edition of the Mazda Miata that was available. And what's ironic about this, JP, is that by special edition, Mazda tells you they only made 4,000 of them, which is nowhere near a limited edition. It's just a special edition. Besides the paint job, buyers were treated to a tan leather interior with a black dash top and a black steering wheel. And it was accompanied by a Nardi wood shifter and a Nardi wood handbrake. Other than that, there really weren't many boxes to tick when you ordered or purchased or picked up your Mazda Miata. But I have to say, in 1991, I was 21 years old, and I did absolutely want one of these things. I thought it was very cool. The whole notion of the Miata was that they were bringing back, with Japanese reliability, the open-top British formula for a two-seat sports car. So the idea that the very first special edition was, in fact, British racing green, Mazda was making no bones about where they got their inspiration for making the Miata in the first place. And successfully, I might add, because we know they've made well over 1 million of these things since. This particular one out of Virginia has a limited slip differential, 5-speed manual transmission, just 116 horsepower on these early MX-5s. This car has just 18,000 miles and looks to be in very good condition. The car
Does this one have power steering? Did you happen to notice?
I don't think any Miata in those days had power steering. They were
actually, some of them, most of them did. The ones that didn't were the ones that you want.
Oh, I would have bet Buffalo nickel that they were all free of power steering. So you tell me. I don't know. I didn't read that far into it or didn't notice it in the thing, but what I can tell you is that this car is languishing at $13,250 on just 9 bids, which is kind of weird. So is there going to be a late rally on this, JP, or is just nobody cares about these early cars? When is this car going to start bringing collector money?
Yeah, I mean, how many miles did you say this one has on it again? It's pretty 18,000 miles is crazy low, but also $13,000 for a 91 is a lot of money for a Miata, given that most of them are going for 5 or 6. So this, this car is twice the amount of what one should go for. But 2.5 hours, I think this thing has. I think there's going to be a late rally for this car because it really is. It looks like it's that nice. I mean, with having the hardtop is a great feature for a lot of people. Boy, you and I talk about sports cars and visceral and 911s and blah, 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 blah. But so many people just, a 911 is just not attainable for so many people who have families or have a lot of other real, genuine expenses or priorities or are just generally smarter with their money. But, if you want to have that sports car that's not expensive, you can go have that experience and not have to worry about having to dump money into it over and over and over again. We keep saying the Miata is the way to go. If you're a young guy trying to get into enthusiasm, how many other cars are there for under 10 grand that have, a 5-speed manual and rear wheel drive and are light? And this car is just it.
Limited slip differential. And remember, JP, these cars hold like 0.9 of a G on a skid pad with a set of sticky tires. This is a tremendous driving car. Now, if you're going up to Newcomb's Ranch on the way up, your buddies are going to probably leave you because this car doesn't have the torque to keep up with them driving up the mountain. But after lunch, when you guys are coming down the mountain, none of these guys can shake you. With a little momentum and some gravity at your back, these cars handle really, really well. And they brake and turn in beautifully. They're great driving cars. I should also mention, JP, this car, as you can see in the photos, has the factory hardtop. That wasn't a standard feature. I think you had to pay extra for that. So I just reread the whole ad. I don't see any mention of the power steering.
Delete.
I don't. There's no mention of it one way or the other, so I wouldn't know. But the hardtop, I'm sure, was a few bucks in period. So with all that being said, any other comments, or you want me to give you my bid?
One last thing, just because, Miatas, there are, like you said, there are so many of them. There's 4,000 of just the special edition, how many gajillions of other ones, and they were really unchanged for quite a while. I am so surprised, and with the plethora of aftermarket parts and with all the body kits and everything that you can get for them, I'm surprised that no one has made some basic body kits, some minimalist body stuff, like not even body kits, but like a replacement of the lights or a replacement of the headlights or or the tail lights, something that you could just like pull the old ones out and pop the new ones in and make them look not more modern and whiz bang and more, but less. Cause I feel like is great and minimalist as some of these things as they are, they really do suffer from that 90s roundness kind of, the things that made this a hairdresser's car in the 90s and made it tough for guys to really go, yeah, I want this.
There was a thing I saw on one. It was a special edition that was black that had a red interior, and it had JP. I don't even know how to describe this. Forgive me, my vernacular is escaping me. But behind the two roll bars behind the headrest, it had little tiny cam things. So like coming off your helmet, it was like sloped down, and there was a pair of them coming off the
kind of a
seats.
Speedster back.
Yeah, and it was really kind of cool looking. Not like one of those Rouge Speedsters that like make those fake 356s, but just something that kind of you look at it and you're like, what is it that makes that car look different? And again, the car I saw it on was black with a red interior, so it kind of looked like like a baby Batmobile kind of thing. It was, I don't know, it was a cool little touch, and it was understated, and I thought that was a neat little accessory to have. Anyway,
all right. So what's your bid?
Yeah, so the car's at $13,250. It's on 8 bids. I still think there's got to be a late rally on this. I wrote on $18,000. My bid is going to come in at $17,000. That's less than $4,000 to go, but I still think that this is a really nice car and should bring that money and sell for that at that price.
So I'm sorry, you glitched out there. You said 17 or 18?
17, please. That's
17, please. All right. I'm going to take a risk on this. Because of the crazy low miles, I'm going to go 1,000 over you. I'm going to take your 18 because that's kind of where I was living too. I wasn't sure, somewhere between 15 and 18. If this thing breaks 20, I'll be amazed because it is nice, but I don't think it's primo nice.
Right, but I wouldn't be amazed. We've seen that Micah Merlot one they did that was like like the color of my Ruby car with BBS wheels and tan. We've seen those cars break 20 with twice as many miles. So if this being the first version of special edition, it could break 20, and then we'll both have egg on our face. Except you'll win.
Except I'll win. I'm going to take the over on this one. All right, cool car. Let's move on. What do we got next?
Okay, let's jump over to Cars and Bids, JP, and we're going to look at a Carmona Red Metallic 2008 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. This is a no reserve auction out of Colorado. Colorado car. It's in Nashville, Tennessee is where the consignor is. The car has 93,400 miles. I love the color on this car because it's really cool. I don't think the color goes well with the interior, so I don't want you to think I'm buying into the whole design thing here. But what Doug DeMuro hammers home on this car is this was a heavy build. This was $126,630, which means equipment. And the highlights for me are how this car handles. You got the 21-inch wheels, which were an option. This car has PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management System, which electronically controls the dampening. It rides on air suspension. And then it also has the PDCC, the Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control with active roll bars. So this car handles as good as an E1 platform car ever could on dry tarmac. As such, this probably is a great driving SUV. Don't forget, it has 500 horsepower and over 500 pound-foot of torque. Other than that, it's kind of a no stories, high mileage, pretty rare build. This clear with the color and the equipment, it's clear that this car was ordered for somebody, and I think that's what sort of sets it apart. As such, it's doing really well. On just 10 bids out of Nashville, Tennessee, this car's already sitting at $20,200. JP, I know you have a bone to pick with these early E1s that have forced induction because the parts on them and the repair costs are so high. So explain to our audience why you're going to kind of poop all over this thing.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to poop all over this thing because it is fantastic. I mean, I actually really like this interior color. People know that I owned one that had the same interior color. It wasn't a turbo. It was a base one with a manual. But this one's really cool that it's the hazelnut with the black dash and the black top. I don't like, the exterior of this turbo. It looks like it's equipped with all the right trim. So it looks like a GTS, but it's actually a turbo. I wish they made the turbo with the GTS interior. I don't know why they put these basic B seats in these things. I mean, this is the top of the line vehicle, but it has the seats from the lesser. I just don't get that. The GTS seats have all the cool bolsters and stuff. Yes, the PDDC is magnificent on these. It really is something special, but it is problematic. They are not exactly the most reliable things. And here's one thing. We always talk about Porsche. What is it? The dynamic damping system. Yep. Damping or dampening. One makes things wet. The other one keeps things level. So I was dressed
JP,
down once for making that mistake.
JP, who are you making wet?
Exactly. So maybe it does both, and maybe that was in fact deliberate by the people who named it. Yeah. But yeah, this thing is just a monster. Yeah, the exterior color is not really my thing, but this would sure look cool next to Ruby, wouldn't it? If it was all black interior, that would be quite the pair. For my, where's it sitting at right now? It's already at 20 grand with 10 bids. Amazing. That's not a lot. And then how many bids? Or I'm 10. Sorry, not how many bids. It's at 10. Okay, yeah, 10 bids for 20 grand. I'm sorry, how many miles? That's what I was looking for in my brain.
95,000.
95,000 miles. Okay, so, this car, I haven't looked at the maintenance sheet on this thing yet, but it's going to start needing maintenance. And OMG, you better be ready for it. Every time we bring about Cayennes, I can't help but mention things like, fuel pumps on a 6-cylinder Cayenne. It's a $600 item. On this vehicle, you're looking at nearly $3,000. To change the alternator on this one. This one is there's our favorite, Tony over at 900 series in Las Vegas. They're pretty famous.
Carl's Place, Tony Mazzagatti.
Carl's Place, but Tony Mazzagatti. Yeah, but it's the 900 series is the name of the place and their TV show. But they, they had one of these in their shop recently, and anytime anyone came in the shop, he was like dragging them over to look. They had the thing up on a lift, and the powertrain was down on the ground or on like a little lower lift, and they had the whole engine and transmission and everything, and he just starts pointing at it. He's like, oh my God, the alternator is liquid cooled. So the only way to replace the alternator is to remove the entire powertrain. And then once you do that, then it's everything else. I mean, the bill for the poor guy that got his Cayenne back. This is $8 grand. Well, way more than that. Oh my gosh, he would have been so happy if it was an $8,000 bill. The guy would have been jumping up. He would have like hugged you. He may have done other unspeakable things to you if you had asked if he could have gotten the bill for $8,000. Holy cow, that
How much was it?
Well, I'm not going to disclose that, but it was definitely
More than
five-figure.
$8,000.
It was definitely somewhere into where you would think the vehicle itself was worth. This thing was, what'd you say, $100,000 originally?
126.
Yeah, and the thing is, the car doesn't know how much it's worth now. It still thinks it's a $130,000 car. So the maintenance for it is still $130,000 car maintenance. So getting a $15,000, $20,000 bill is something that is absolutely within the realm of possibility as far as the ownership of this car, which is why I tend to like the basic 6-cylinder versions with a manual. But while this thing works, it is going to be so awesome, and you're going to be able to keep up with GT3s and all kinds of fun stuff. What is your bid on this, Nita, on this really, really cool
So
Cayenne?
JP, this car's moved the needle since last night. It's got a couple more bids, and it was at 18,000 and change last night. So I had put $22,000, but I'm going to raise my bid to 24,000.
Going to 24. All right.
It's a no reserve auction. It has a little bit of action, and man, when you read the spec sheet on that, you can't. I think it'd be hard to duplicate a car that cool for the money. So I believe in this one. I'm going to say 24,000.
I think if it had fewer miles, if it were in the 70,000 miles there, I think it would get in that 25 range. But 25 is kind of all the money for one of these, unless it had some big tires and a roof rack and some lights on it. Over in Bring a Trailer, we're seeing some of these go in the 30s. I'm gonna bet just really under you. I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm gonna go 23, just right under, because we are right there. I mean, you could go either way. I do not see any chance of this thing going over 25. I'd be shocked, and I'd have egg on my face if it goes over that. 24, you could get a Yahtzee. So I think you pick the number.
Yeah, we have to stop saying egg on the face, or as our viewership grows, somebody's going to call for that. So, all right, let's stay
pie on the face.
Actually, yeah, that works better.
Pie.
Let's jump over to Bring a Trailer, and we're going to take a look now at a 1971 Mercedes-Benz 280 SE 3.5 liter coupe. This particular car, I have a weird relationship with this era of cars from Mercedes-Benz. When I look at these cars, to me, they look like they're from the 50s or early 60s. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that this car was built and for sale in the United States in the 1970s. It just doesn't look like that era of a car. That being said, I think they're beautiful. I totally appreciate them. But if I'm going to buy a car from the era, I'm thinking muscle car or performance car, sports car. I'd much rather have something that's way more fun to drive. This is a beautiful car to look at, be a beautiful car to take your kids or grandkids to go get ice cream in. But I wouldn't do a rally in one of these things. So it's really weird. The convertible versions of these cars bring astronomical money. The coupes have now started to follow. This car is sitting at JP. It's a true mileage unknown car, but it's sitting at already like $126,000. It was on a 3-year. They call it a refurbishment, but I don't know what the difference between saying that it was or wasn't restored. They painted the car, they rebuilt the drivetrain, they put new leather in it. And they did it to exacting details. They used the same company for the paint. They used the correct company for the leather to make them keep this car as original as can be. So with that in mind, I think this car is destined to bring big money. Out of Fredericksburg, Texas, 3-year restoration, the bigger motor, I think the 3.5 liter, I think these cars were available with a 6-cylinder with smaller displacement, but the 3.5 is a V8. They're matted to a 4-speed automatic, but this makes 200 horsepower and over 200 pounds of torque. So once you get it moving, this car will cruise down the freeway. Anyway, there you go. What do you think, JP? Do you have any experience with these generation of Mercedes?
Not a whole lot. It's certainly not a two-door one. I had a 240D for a little while, and that thing was slightly newer. But my personal vintage is 1971. This car just screams bad guy in a Bond movie. It's just so cool. Look at that thing. I mean, I can't think of a car that's more classy. I mean, whew, I mean, short of maybe an Aston Martin from 10 or 20
Right.
years prior to it or something like that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, look at that car.
Yeah.
You're right, not exactly a muscle car, not exactly a rally car, but it's one of those things. We start getting into these car questions and collectible cars and stuff. How many do you have? How big a garage you got, and what are you adding to the collection? If you already have the muscle car, if you already have the 911, this is absolutely the car to add to the collection to kind of keep things mixed up. If you don't have any of those other things, but what do you want? I mean, look, if you're a car enthusiast and say you're in your 70s and maybe you've got some limited abilities physically because it's really hard to drive something like a 911 or whatever. But you still want a cool enthusiast car. Isn't this what you would get? I mean,
absolutely. And if you can afford it,
yeah.
JP, I know you're a big cabriolet guy. I think I know you think I'm not, but the convertible version of this car is so cool. Like that's the car you'd want to drive away from the day you marry. Like that would be. Cars.
It's at even though it's expensive, it's not a number like a 300 SL of the same era with convertibles that are
those are $1 million cars.
Cars. So you could get one of these for one of those for a couple $100,000. So yeah, okay, this is like an alternative to something like that. That's probably as classy or more. And might be more fun to drive because something about those SLs, they look so great, but they don't handle great. They don't handle like a sports car at all, but you'd expect them to. So they kind of let you down when you actually get to drive one. Whereas something like this, I think, drives more like what you would expect it to be like. And so it would just be a dream realized and it wouldn't be a disappointment. What is your bid on this? I mean, the value on these,
I just real quick, I just want to dispel your thinking. The part of the reason why the 300 SL is such a legend is it does handle a little better than you think, and it with like 300 horsepower, it is a little faster than you would think. It for a 1950s car, the 300 SL is all the hype, and that's why they bring the romantic money.
I have driven one, and I didn't get to drive it in anger, and it was. It was a happy surprise, but it wasn't. But it was also that big wagon wheel. You know what it is? It kind of reminded me. I'm gonna say this out loud. It kind of reminded me of a '50s Corvette. I mean, I hate to say it, but it was like this is the huge wagon wheel that's like straight up and down. It's got no angle and just like the limited amount of space, but the car is actually huge. And it was just like. Wow, I can't believe how much this is. Maybe I was paying too much attention to that. But anyways, do you have a sense of where this thing's what this is gonna make it to? We only have a half hour to go.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you just a little bit of a spread because it's really hard to judge on these cars. Again, with a convertible, there'd be no doubt in my mind that this caliber of a convertible would be north of $250 and possibly up to $350,000. This car is sitting now at $137,000. As JP just said, 33 minutes to go on 42 bids. So there is action on this car. Last night, I put $159,000 as my bid because it was $11,000 less at that time and about 10 bids less. But it's entirely possible, JP, that this car could creep up into high 180s, maybe close to $200,000. So I'm going to change my bid and put my money where my mouth is, and I'm just going to go $181,000, and then figure out the over and under from there because it's really tough to gauge. But the audience seems to be appreciating this car based on the action it's got.
I'm gonna go with your gut and go 159. If this car came at me without seeing it, like right now I have the 137,000 number with a half hour to go on an auction. So my only basis is basically, all right, how much time we have left, where's it at now, and from a percentage point of view, I'm gonna guess based on how much more could it really get. Your information certainly helps me, and it's a benefit to go next. I mean, I would not have known. I wouldn't have known if this is $100,000 car or a $300,000 car. So 159 is probably about where I would have landed anyway, because that would have been somewhere in the middle of pure guess. I'm glad that I know more about it now, and I'll certainly be paying attention to these more later.
Yeah, I mean, a really cool car, JP. You have an electronic sunroof. It's got this big air cleaner on the top of that V8 motor, but it's fuel injected. I mean, there's these cars. This was a time when Mercedes was emerging as a as a world-class sports car and taking the mantle from Cadillac as the best, technology, the best luxury, and the best build quality. And this era harkens to that. As such, the collector market has really warmed up to these cars, and they're bringing big money. This restoration looks like it was very detail oriented, and I think the audience is going to appreciate that.
I love too on Mercedes, they've kind of kept the design language on their coupes way up into the current stuff where there's no B pillar, right. In that, and that just looks so good when you have the windows down, and it really gives you almost a cabrio feel with the sunroof and the windows on the side open. It just really just makes it more like an amphitheater driving down the road than it does necessarily something that you're a fishbowl that you're kind of stuck inside. And so I really appreciate that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful car. I'd love to drive one of these. Okay, awesome. Well, we've put our bids in. We've waxed much about this car. Let's move on to the next one. What do we got?
All right. So now we're going to jump. We're going to stay on Bring a Trailer, but we're going to jump over and look at a 1991 Toyota MR2 Turbo 5-speed manual, 100,000 miles out of Miami, Florida. This car looks like it's all the goods, but wait. There was an accident reported on the Carfax. This car was rear-ended, and as it's a mid-engine car, I would be a little bit concerned about the subframe structure that holds that motor in place and the exhaust system and whatever else might have happened. The accident was quite a while ago, but JP, prior to Bring a Trailer's success, where would you go to find a nice MR2 or almost any MR2? You just somehow they built a million of these things. And yet you never see them on the road. You never see them in the want ads. At least my experience, I don't run into this car very often. And now I think we're covering our second or third one in just a few months we've been doing this. That being said, the car looks pretty clean for the miles. The interior looks to be in really nice condition. I just don't know how to explain it to you. JP, this guy put like coilovers, like springs and shocks on it, and it doesn't do anything for me. As silly as this is going to sound, I'd rather have the Miata. So anyway, There you go.
That is a bold statement.
Yeah, I would make the Miata cool because I just know the Miata is a great handling car, and I'd rather overachieve on the way up to Newcomb's in a Miata than be caught dead in this thing. I just doesn't do anything for me. I love Japanese cars from the era, but this wasn't one of them. And yet I know they drive really good, but I don't know. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, you've never driven one?
I
no. I mean, maybe you've been in one, but if you haven't driven, I mean, this is the best Ferrari for under $20,000 you can possibly get right here.
Right,
I mean, these things are. Oh God, they're so good. Now, okay, let's talk about good old Carfax again. You mentioned that there was an accident in the back, and you know how much I get really cheesed off when that's mentioned. Right. It is not a salvage. This car is not a salvaged car. It was not totaled. It just had an accident, which is something that cars do. And if it was a while ago, now one thing about these cars, they were never terribly expensive in the first place, which made them pretty inexpensive for a very long time. Which means if it did get in an accident, it would be very easy for this to have been totaled. If you put if 10 years ago you got in a slight rear fender bender, if somebody bumped you in the rear and it did $2,500, $3,500 worth of damage, which would be very easy to do, right? The car would be totaled. So that makes me say, okay, yeah, it had a little accident, but it was probably just a bumper cover or something like that. We just saw the pictures and you see all the seams on the back. They're freaking perfect.
Looks good.
And now this is me. I don't know. I haven't looked underneath this car. I don't know. Maybe it does have subframe issues and stuff like that, but I highly doubt it. The mid-engine platform, this was the most wrecked car in 1991. This is one of those cars that people got into thinking they can handle it, and you know what it's all about with engines in the back. Even though it's in the middle, even though these things are balanced really, really well, 90s tire technology was not quite up to it, and it was as bad or worse than the 930s of the previous generation Porsches. So
and only to be superseded by the forthcoming Dodge Viper, which like 50% of the owners, JP, remember the statistic from when the Viper came out the first couple 3 years, like half the owners crashed the car on the way home from the dealership. I mean, like like a substantial amount of the buyers couldn't make it home in the car. Like, that's insane.
Right. Well, and Vipers are in fact hard to drive. Hell, I've almost wrecked one driving one. They are not an easy car to own. Whereas this car really is. I mean, if you know anything about sports car driving, it is actually terribly forgiving. The problem is most people, of course, they lift when they start to slide and blah 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 blah. The Viper is like a rear engine car, but it's not. It's so funny because the way it wants to spin around and have polar moments. But I love this one. You get that open motoring feel because it's a T-top, and that so you still get that rigidity of a coupe. I wish someone still made T-tops or Targas.
Oh my God.
This thing looks like if they made a Ferrari 348, which is what was the contemporary at the time. If Ferrari had made an entry level Ferrari that was just like $35,000, this is what it would have been. Only this one would, unlike the 348, you could have 300,000 miles on it.
If the V8 348 spawned a design language V6 and called it a Dino, it would have been this car. Yeah, for sure.
No. That's a great way to put it. I love that. Yeah, so I'm surprised. I'm truly shocked that you don't like these. I would sure love the opportunity one day to put you behind the wheel of one and change your mind.
I'll be smiling from ear to ear, but I would rather pull that Miata out of Virginia than this MR2 with mods out of Florida. I don't love
Florida, but it doesn't. I mean, what mods are you talking about? I mean, coilovers. That's something that you would do. Exhaust. That's something.
iBox Springs, KYB shocks, and then some aftermarket exhaust. Like I said, it's probably really nice, but from here, it just smells funny to me. I don't know.
You look at it, and it looks like a stock one. That's that's why I'm so shocked. Like yesterday when we talked about the Targa, had those silly wheels that weren't period correct. This car has all the things that you would do and did to your 911. You lowered it. You put good suspension in it. You made the exhaust sound the way it should. You open it up and let it breathe. So this does everything that Michael Deeb would do to any other car. Yet he shits on it. What the hell? I just dropped an S-bomb there. This is fucking ridiculous. That's Fuggen.
I'm finicky, JP. What can I say?
Finicky. What's your bid? It's sitting at $10,000 with less than an hour to go. That is an incredibly good deal, I think. But I do think this has ways to go. What do you think?
So, JP, when I talk about my finickiness, I should also mention, what's I don't know the right way to describe this, but when everybody wants it, you want it. When nobody wants it, you're like, what's the problem? This car is sitting at $10,000 on just 3 bids. I mean, explain that to me. If this car is so good, why is it? And the high bidder, by the way, his BAT handle is "Stop hitting my car," which I think is brilliant. Oh my God, that's so great. We have to have an episode on just BAT handles because they're fantastic. JP, I think this car goes to $12,000 and sells because it's already all the money as far as I'm concerned. So $12,000 is my bid.
Yeah, I think it's going to go higher than that. I think it's probably going to get up to 15. I'll say 15,000. Give you a little bit of give you a little help on that one.
All right.
There might be something that we're missing, kind of like that. What was the car the other day that we discovered? It was the MR2. It was the first gen MR2 where we read the ad more close and we found out that it was overheating. It was
the comments. Yeah, it wasn't the ad.
So maybe something's going on that we haven't dug into that's holding this one back. But this should be well over 20 grand. It's got some miles on it compared to that Miata, but anyone who would rather have that Miata over this is just bonkers. I mean, you're just out of your flipping mind, especially an old guy. You can roll up in this car and not look ridiculous. You or I roll up in a Miata, as much as I love them and as much as I keep telling people get one if you want to get into enthusiasm, you and I look ridiculous in a Miata.
That's true.
We could pull this car off. True. All right, let's move on.
I agree. All right. All right. So, JP, we saved the best for last. Maybe not. It's a Lotus. It's not that great. Staying on Bring a Trailer out of Newton, North Carolina, is an 8,000-mile and slightly modified 2017 Lotus Evora 400. These cars come with a 6-speed manual transmission. They employ a Toyota, I think like Avalon-sourced 3.5-liter V6, but it's supercharged, and they make 400 horsepower. This particular car has the Comotech 460 kit, which adds, like an intake, a chip, a muffler, and a sport cat. I think that's about it, and boost the power up to about 460 horsepower. This car was sold out of San Francisco at the Lotus dealer that is referred to as Cars Dawidiak. I actually know Walter Dawidiak personally. He's a great guy. And it sounds like from the ad that when the owner bought this car, he wanted a little more red leather in his red leather interior, and Cars Dawidiak facilitated that. So I think like the center armrest, and they mentioned one or two other places where they replaced the black leather with red leather to match the seats in the door cards or something like that, if I read the ad correctly. There's plenty of these cars out there. They're not a huge commercial success. So if you want one, you can find one. This car has 8,000 miles on it, and as such, it's anybody's guess as to how well used Lotuses are holding their value. I can't imagine the warranty on a 2017 while we're in 2021 is going to last much longer, if at all. It wouldn't surprise me, JP, if these cars only came with a 3-year warranty as opposed to some of the other luxury brands that have a 4-year warranty. I'm purely speculating, though. I don't know. Mm-hmm. These cars are famous for how well they handle, because of their suspension setup and because of their lightweight. Lotus was one of the cars really bang home their cars by having lighter weight. And so the design philosophy, the engineering philosophy of all contemporary Lotuses is to be lightweight, and this car proves that. So with 460 horsepower, you're talking about GT3 levels of speed and grip from this car with a Toyota V6 reliability in a really affordable package. The car is sitting at $66,000, John, with 18 bids. So there's definitely some interest in it. And again, this car is out of Newton, North Carolina. What do you think? You like that? Does that do it for you?
I want to love this car so badly. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the specs, and you're like, yeah, what's not to like? Mid-engine, 400 horsepower V6. But something about the way it looks, I just can't get past. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I feel it's not like, I don't think it's an ugly car. I don't even think it's a bad looking car. In fact, I would go as far as saying I think it looks really, really cool. But it's just, you know what I want? I want this powertrain. I want this performance in an Alpha 3C. I want it to look like the Alpha. This has everything that the Alpha does not. The Alpha is a little 4-cylinder, with the stupid little paddle shifters and everything like that. And this car has all the other stuff that we've been begging for in that platform, but it doesn't have the look. It feels like it has an identity crisis. It feels like, is this a Ferrari 488 knockoff kinda? Or I mean, it just doesn't have anything that really says Lotus to me. It just, it kind of looks like a GTR. It just doesn't look like whatever the heck it is. It just looks like it just doesn't live in a place in our heart. This is a car that only lives in our minds, and that's because it is all about the performance that makes the appeal of this car.
Keep that photo up right there. David Sullivan has an Exige or
an Elise.
Whatever the other one, an Elise.
Yeah.
The irony, to your point, JP, the most Lotus part of the facade of this car is its ass. That back end actually looks like a slightly more contemporary Elise or Exige, which is the hardtop version. But all the rest of the car, it's hard. If you're not familiar with the car, with the Evora, or a huge Lotus fan, you wouldn't immediately recognize it as a Lotus. I mean, you would take a serious enthusiast to look at that across the parking lot and go, oh, it's an Evora.
And I feel like it's like a little long, too. It's like the wheelbase is.
It has a back seat.
Oh, is that what it is? It's okay. So it's a limo. Got it. I mean, this picture right here kind of looks like an Elise, but
I think there's like half a back seat in these cars for whatever reason. I don't know if it's insurance purposes, which is why Porsche always put a back seat in their car. But I think there are 2 little tiny half seats back there, and that's why it's long. I think. There's no photos of it, by the way. This guy's trying to sell a $100,000 car, and he's got 25 photos. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't know. You got any sense of where this thing's gonna go, price wise?
I don't, honestly. The low end would be in the 70s, the mid end would be in the 80s, and the high end would be in the 90s. This is definitely not in the 90s. the modifications sound really cool. That again, this is like you were saying about the last car. This is something I would do to mine. If this thing passes smog, I would never take that stuff off the car.
Finding parts for this thing, good luck, man. I mean, there is a Lotus dealership here in Las Vegas, and they're really stepping up their game trying to make it happen. But I know that people still complain about the ability. It's not up to the dealership. It's up to, just getting the parts is really hard. Anything out of Britain is going to be difficult, but now.
Well, we've heard David Sullivan lament time and time again. He goes to the dealership, and they say, yeah, we can order that for you. And 2 months later, he's calling the dealership going, where the heck is my part? And they're like, we're still waiting for it. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. So I had put $84,000 last night when it was on 16 bids at $65,000. But with just an hour to go, sitting at $66,000, I am going to change my bid and say $78,000. And my perception is that it might not even sell it, that this guy's reserve is so high because he's got a 460 kit and he only had to put up 20 photos. He thinks he's got something special. I don't know. I like you, JP, I want to love this car and I don't. Yeah. It's a mess. I don't know.
I almost want to go down and drive one, go down to the Lotus and just go take one for a test drive and see if it puts me over, because it seems like there's going to be some value in these. There's going to be some good buys on this car.
These have a longer wheelbase and a teeny bit more weight than Sullivan's Elise or any of those Exeges that are out there.
But 4 times the horsepower.
But but this has this like huge 3.5 liter V6 with 460 horsepower. This thing is probably fantastic to drive, and much more stable, like out to Overton and stuff like that, than the little Elise, which is
and probably and a lot more creature comfort too. I mean, what the Elise is notorious for is literally not having any storage space. I mean, there's not even a glove box. If there is any storage in there to put a pair of gloves, you're going to be hard pressed to find it. This car looks like it has power windows and all kinds of stuff. Whereas, so anyways,
exactly right.
I'm gonna guess 10,000 from and again, it's just because it's sitting at 66,000 with an hour to go. I'm gonna say maybe it climbs another 10, but I don't think it could go much more than that. So I'm going to say 76,000. You said what? 78?
78. Yeah, we're right there.
So I just, I'm just going 10 over from where it's at now. Just again, purely platform.
If this guy's lucky, this car will make it to 80 grand. I just don't know. I mean, I can't imagine there's.
What's the CarMax value on this thing? Again, this is one of those cars that's new enough that you just roll in and, what's it at? I don't know.
Or if you were looking at what would be a hard exotic to sell? Like if you were looking at a Lamborghini, they'd give you all the money to take a Lamborghini off the showroom floor. They'd give you 90 grand for this car because they're not going to discount the Lamborghini, but you're going to buy one. So they're just like, all right, cool. There's a couple of exotic dealers that would over allow on the trade just to move some of their product in probably a soft economy. Ferrari dealership right now will give you 100 grand for that fucking thing.
Yeah. Whoop. Wow. Whoop. He dropped an F-bomb. Beep. We didn't say that. We didn't say that. I have to click the box. Not for kids. All right. Well, on that bombshell, as they used to say on Top Gear, we are going to end this edition of Bid Nerds. Make sure you share and like and subscribe and let everybody know that this channel exists. We're new and we're just getting started, and we really enjoy your interaction, folks. We want to hear your bids. We want to hear about the cars that you want us to talk about on future episodes of Bid Nerds. So stick around. We're here every Monday through Friday at about the 9 o'clock hour-ish, depending on Pacific time. And enjoy watching the auctions today. Happy bidding, and we bid you adieu. See ya, Michael Deeb.